Welcome to the Debrief, Carolina Journal's weekly recap of major developments in North Carolina politics and public policy. This one will be a little bit different since we're in the holiday week, and of course we want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving. We hope you have enjoyed the Thanksgiving holiday and are looking forward to a good holiday season. My name is Mitch Kokai. I'm sitting in for Donna King this week, who I know Donna is busy enjoying Thanksgiving with her family. And this is a little note you should know. We're not actually sitting in this studio on Thanksgiving. All of us are with family and friends, but we have recorded this ahead of time. Joining me as our expert panelists as we talk about some issues related to Thanksgiving and related to the holiday season. To my left, your right on the screen, is Catherine Katie Zender, who is a reporter at Carolina Journal. To my right, to your left on the full screen, when you see the full screen shot, is Kelly Lester, who works with the John Locke Foundation's Center for Food, Power, and Life. I'm going to take this opportunity to say that I think for one day out of the year, on September 21st, it should be renamed the Center for Earth, Wind, and Fire, but only on that day, and then it can go back to the Center for Food, Power, and Life.
I think my boss would be down for that.
Yeah, exactly. We better do that one day a year. Yeah. All right, well, we do wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving and hope that you didn't have to spend a ton of money on your Thanksgiving meal. Interesting news out of the American Farm Bureau Federation, which tracks the cost of the Thanksgiving meal. And they say in their latest report that the cost of a Thanksgiving dinner for 10 is lower for a third straight year, thanks to steep discounting of turkey prices. The American Farm Bureau Federation saying the average cost for that meal for 10 is about $55.18. They're saying it's down 5% from 2024 and the lowest since 2021. But Katie, we were talking before we got started about the fact that this sounds good, but this isn't necessarily the whole story. What else should we know?
Right, so it is down for the third year in a row, but it's actually still up 13% from 2019. So we're still up more than 10% from pre-pandemic levels.
Yeah, so, and one of the reasons is we've got lower turkey prices, but some other things, the prices have gone up.
Right, that's exactly right. So a lot of those individual side dishes like, Brussels sprouts, green beans, peas, corn, things like that are all up. In fact, sweet potatoes, which North Carolina is the #1 producer of sweet potatoes, is up 37%.
Yeah, all kinds of interesting things. Kelly, you have been doing lots of work in the ag field, major reports for the John Locke Foundation. You could find them at johnlocke.org. And a lot of that work deals with some of the government barriers for agriculture, some of the things that make things more costly. When you see these prices for Thanksgiving, what comes to mind for you, having looked into this so closely?
Yeah, I think it's no surprise, especially with produce, that we're seeing higher prices. Things from tariffs would probably be the biggest immediate thing we could talk about. Obviously, raising costs there. On input costs have been particularly high for years now for farmers, along with labor shortages. So those two mixtures, plus environmental factors like Hurricane Helene, affecting a lot of our sweet potato produce and things like that, is going to raise the price of produce. And farmers are already struggling. I mean, they're barely making ends meet, especially crop farmers. If you work in steak and if you work in the cow industry is a whole different story. But that's not Thanksgiving. And so when you're a crop farmer right now, it's very hard to make ends meet. I mean, the Farm Bureau even mentioned that last year we lost 15,000 farms. So there's another story being told behind the scenes there. Yeah, prices are down, but farmers are still struggling to make ends meet. And it makes sense that prices for crop produce are higher right now.
Now, we see the steep discounting on the turkey prices. North Carolina, a big turkey producing state. Is it surprising that we're seeing that, or is that something that we should be expecting?
Well, it's actually interesting because wholesale turkey prices are up. So grocery stores are paying more money this year for turkeys than they did last year. However, they're discounting them more because of a change in demand, quantity demanded. They're trying to get that demand back up. And so they're doing more incentives and coupons and things like that, and lowering prices in order to make that happen. So that's a good thing. It's a great market response to the last few years of having, especially during COVID, those prices escalating a lot and trying to bring them back down now. The turkey is the staple item of your Thanksgiving meal, so.
Something I found interesting in the report, Kelly, is that grocery stores are actually making up the cost and difference of when they're reducing the price of the turkeys, they're making that up in these other side dishes that we're seeing the higher increase in. So like peas, corn, sweet potatoes, that percentage markup is where the grocery stores are making that money back.
Well, and it's when it comes to, and I'm not exactly sure all the different bundle that the Farm Bureau does for the prices, but when you include, I know when you include like green beans and other things like that, it goes up to about $77 a person, somewhere about 73, 77, somewhere around there. So they do have an expanded bundle as well, which includes some of the more expensive produce side items as well.
Yeah, we can tell you some of the details from this report. The centerpiece turkey, they say, is 16.3% less expensive this year than last. Right. Stuffing and dinner rolls, also cheaper. But frozen peas, as Katie was saying, up 17%. Sweet potatoes, 37%. Not good news for North Carolina farmers who are such a producer, as you said, of sweet potatoes. And the fresh vegetable tray that they say is 61%. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So
those are already kind of expensive, those veggie trays. It's the easiest thing to buy when you're entertaining lots of people. And you're like, let me just go get a veggie tray. And it's like $18 for a veggie tray. It's going to be even more expensive now.
Yeah, exactly. So with the work that you have done, what are some of the things that you see as sort of the major barriers that government puts out there that really would be good to get out of the way or to at least ameliorate so that things will be better for farmers and ultimately for the consumers?
I mean, I think the tariffs are the biggest thing right now, and Trump did recently cut tariffs on 200 types of food produce with 3 Latin American countries, which was great. However, that being said, we're not actually going to see any of that until after Christmas. So the holiday season right now, prices would have been probably lower had the tariffs not been there to begin with. And so we probably would have seen maybe even more of a drop than the 5% had the tariffs not been there. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't looked into that data specifically, but I'd imagine that, I mean, even just talking about the veggie tray, the packaging on that veggie tray is tariffed right now.
Right.
Heavily. Plastic is expensive right now. So that makes sense that would go up in price. Not just the food inside of it, but the packaging around it is more expensive. So it's not just lowering tariffs on food, it's lowering tariffs across the board that need to happen.
Well, something you brought up, Kelly, was the 200 different foods from Latin American countries that Trump has rolled back these tariffs on. But a lot of those foods, we don't even grow here. Like coffee and bananas, we can't even grow them here. So, that wouldn't have had necessarily an impact anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Some of those things you probably could grow, but it would be so prohibitively expensive. Why would you ever want to when you could get them at a lower price from the foreign countries, which is something that people who are for tariffs and for protectionism don't often take into account. I mean, that's sort of basic economics 101. If you can specialize in something and have the comparative advantage, it's something you need to do.
There was a famous situation in econ way back in the day. 2 famous economists asked each other the question, what is the one thing that every economist can agree on? And it took these 2 economists a while to think about it. They went back to their houses, they sat there, they pondered, and when they came back, they were like, comparative advantage. It's the one thing that across the board almost every economist agrees is a good thing. If one country could produce something better than we can, why would we not purchase from them and then sell them the stuff that we produce better than they do? It just optimizes the entire thing, and that's why trade is such an important aspect. And so this trade war is definitely very concerning in that regard.
Yeah.
And something that's obvious to economists, but not always obvious to normal people, because when you're teaching comparative advantage, one of the things you say is, you might be, as the executive in your firm, you might be a better typist than your assistant. You might be, but it makes much more sense for that person to be doing the typing than you because of your comparative advantage of doing the other things.
Right.
And that's something that is lost on people who haven't taken economics and don't understand the benefits of comparative advantage. I want to swing back to you, Katie, because as Kelly was putting together these substantial reports for the John Locke Foundation about what's affecting our farms, you also, at the same time, were writing stories for Carolina Journal about particular farming operations and particular farmers and how they were impacted by some of these misguided policies. What are some of the stories that you remember from that work that really stand out to you?
Right, exactly. So I've talked to farmers over the last year in sweet potato farming, in tobacco farming, in Christmas tree farming, in all these different major industries in beef and poultry that we have here across the state. And so they're all being hit really hard by the tariffs. They're all kind of telling me the same thing. Tariffs are affecting food production and food prices every step of the way, not from, all the way from the production line to the retail. And so, these farmers, even if the food isn't specifically tariffed here, the farmers are experiencing tariffs, in things like steel production, because that's used in farming equipment, in parts for their, farm equipment. So either they're buying new equipment, which most of them aren't doing right now, or they're doing the upkeep and repairs on their equipment, which means they have to, buy new parts, and a lot of those come from China, and steel is tariffed. And so however that's being implemented, it's having an impact on the food prices from every step of the way, from fertilizer all the way to food production, all the way till when it hits the grocery store. So even if it's something that's not necessarily being imported or exported, it's still having an impact on tariffs, and that's really hitting farmers hard, especially since they've been hit so hard the last couple of years with Hurricane Helene, Hurricane Chantal, all these different natural disasters that we've had. And so USDA has actually rolled out a number of relief programs where farmers can apply for federal aid, and there's about $16 billion worth of federal aid that's been allotted to these farmers.
And this would be one thing if these farmers were operating on high margins, and they could just say, okay, well, this is just an extra cost, we'll eat it. I mean, most of these operations, they've got an operating margin that's pretty small. Right. And if you raise an input price substantially, something's got to give.
Right, exactly. Yeah, most of our North Carolina farmers are not big corporate farmers. There are a few, but a lot of them are small to mid-sized farms that are really feeling the impact of this. And they struggle to make ends meet on a regular basis, but when you hit them with tariffs and hurricane costs and all of these different things, that's really having an impact on them.
Before we switch away from the impact of the tariffs and other policies on Thanksgiving and the Thanksgiving meal, giving people a downer after they've just finished their Thanksgiving meal, anything else, Kelly, that we should remind people about changes in government policy that would be helpful so that our farmers are able to flourish in the future?
Yeah, well, there was a really good federal decision recently to change why am I forgetting it right now? the seasonal workers immigration visa, and how that money is how that wage is calculated, the adverse effective wage rate. And so they've recently lowered that to where now cost of living is taken into account a little bit more. Back in the day, we used to be lumped in with Virginia in those calculations, which would make it more expensive because Virginia has a higher cost of living than we do. And higher wages than we do in North Carolina, so make it more expensive for North Carolina farmers. So that's actually going to be coming down, which is very good. Hopefully some of those labor pressures that they've been feeling these last years might let up a little bit more. However, I still think at the end of the day, we need to ease the access to the H-2A visa and allow more immigrants to come in and fill those roles right now. I think that's very important for the long run. I think it really comes down to input cost and labor at the end of the day for these farmers.
Any more thoughts about Thanksgiving before we move on?
Yeah, just to add on to what Kelly said, we've been talking a lot the last couple of weeks about, CBP and the ICE raids and what's going on in Charlotte and in Raleigh. And a big part of agriculture labor is immigrant workers. So that's how these ICE crackdowns are having a huge impact on an already hurting industry.
It's going to be very interesting to see, and of course the immigration crackdown, I'm sure, will be part of the coverage that we will see at Carolina Journal and that we'll be talking about on future editions of the Debrief moving forward. Right now we're going to switch gears a little bit. If you watched the Debrief a couple of weeks ago, you saw some of the details of the latest Carolina Journal poll. I want to revisit a couple of the questions from that poll just because they have such of an impact on what's happening during the rest of our year, basically the holiday season, as people are shopping, thinking about how they're going to be preparing for December 25th or thereabouts, Hanukkah, if you celebrate Hanukkah, and preparing for the new year and your expectations for the new year. A couple of interesting things. This was the Carolina Journal poll that was in the field November 9th and 10th, a survey of 600 likely general election voters. And among the more interesting findings, 38% of people think that the U.S. is headed in the right direction. 55% think we're on the wrong track, which is not good in and of itself. But the group that had the most pessimism, that was most likely to think that things are on the wrong track, young adults, people from 18 to 34. Only 19% of them think that the country is moving in the right direction. 76% think that we're on the wrong track. When you look at the confidence in the economy, which was another question, 40% of people confident about our economy, 58% not confident. Once again, the group with the most pessimism, the least likelihood to say that they were confident in the economy was young adults, 18 to 34. Just 22% of them confident in the economy, 76% not confident. I'm in the old fogies now. I'm in the 50-plus group, people who can join the AARP. But you two are more likely to be talking to people in that age range. When you hear those numbers, is this surprising, or are the people that you're dealing with also kind of pessimistic and not very confident about where things stand?
I got a great message from a friend the other day, and he goes, "Tell me, Kelly, is this country doomed?" and he's in that age range. He's like 27 years old. Young professional here in North Carolina, and I said, that's what I told him. I said, you could live in a third world country,
right,
so let's at least be grateful for what we do have. Thanksgiving, it's a good time to do that. But I'm not surprised at all, and I think a lot of the polling throughout the years has shown that especially Gen Z and millennials have a far more pessimistic look on just in general on politics. They're more cautious of what the government's doing and tend to have a more pessimistic outlook. So I'm not very surprised by those numbers. I think it lines up. I mean, millennials, we grew up during the Great Recession. It's older millennials were getting out of college at the time to no jobs. Younger millennials were at formative years of their lives, middle school, high school, and experienced their parents dealing with job loss and divorce and these terrible things that come when you're in a recession. And so I think all that naturally is going to lead these generations to being a little bit more pessimistic about what government's doing and have a little bit more of that pessimistic outlook on potential changes.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Like, I fall into the millennial category, and I think millennials especially are more pessimistic about the economy. They're more cautious when it comes to government control and regulation. Like, if you look at millennials, like, they're marrying later. A lot of them aren't able to, buy a house as soon as they would like to. They're delaying having families and having kids. And that's something that we thought we would be able to do because, we look at our parents' generation, but because of the change in the economy, it just doesn't make sense for a lot of millennials right now. And a lot of millennials that are doing that are a little bit older. They're closer to the, late 30s. And then I have a lot of friends that are in the is it Z?
Gen
Beats
Z.
me.
Sure.
Yeah. The group right after millennials,
Yeah.
the Gen Z. Yeah.
So I have a lot of friends that are in that generation, and I think they're very pessimistic about the economy. Like, they're spending less money. They're not spending a lot of money.
Frugal.
They're very more cautious, especially when it comes to the government and government regulations and how those things proceed. They're taking an interest and they're taking an active role in that. I mean, we've seen that with Charlie Kirk and the movement with TPUSA. Gen Z is really becoming very politically active and interested in what is actually happening in government.
Now, given what both of you have said, I'm going to bring up another question from the Carolina Journal poll that goes a little bit against what we were just talking about. This was a question about holiday spending, and if you're going to spend more or less this year than you spent last year. Most people, about 2 out of 3, said less. 67% said less. 14% said more. 19% said they were unsure. After these results came back, I thought the one thing that might skew things a little bit is we didn't give people the option of about the same. And I think some of the unsure and maybe even some of the less might have gone into the about the same. But still, that shows that people are thinking about spending less this time around than last. But if you look at the age groups, the group that was least likely to say less and most likely to say more were the young adults. Now, they weren't a heck of a lot more likely to say they were going to spend more than others, but they were the ones who 61% of them said they were going to spend less, Whereas the next group, 35 to 49-year-olds, 74% of them said they were going to spend less. And these, you think 35 to 49-year-olds, these are ones who have to spend on their kids and probably on their parents too at the same time. And then the numbers went down again, 50 to 64-year-olds, my group, 69% saying they'd spend less. And then 65 plus, 63% of them said less. So despite the fact that there seems to be the more pessimism about the economy and the direction of the country, people in that 18 to 34-year-old group were at least more likely than others to say they would spend more on the holidays this year. Surprising or not?
I don't know that it's necessarily surprising. I feel like a lot of people, my age and younger, feel a little bit better about the economy maybe than they did a year ago or 2 years ago. And I think that when you compare that to our parents' generation, they've got this whole lifetime that they're comparing what the economy looks like. And I think in someone my age or younger, the economy has been worse and worse, and so even though it might not be great right now, it does feel better, and so they feel a little bit better about spending more money. But when you compare that to someone who has more life experience and they compare it to their entire life, things cost a lot more than they did, maybe 50 years ago.
Yeah, that's certainly true. That's certainly true. Any surprises that 18 to 34-year-olds might be a little more inclined to spend more this time?
Well, and how's the question posed, I think is my real thought.
Yeah.
Is it, are you going to spend more or do you expect to end up spending more? Because for a lot of people my age, I see a lot of people nowadays buying Chinese goods for Christmas presents for nieces and nephews and stuff like that, going on Temu, going on Shein and buying some cool gadget, electric lighter. There's all sorts of silly things on there, like a wardrobe for your cat. Whatever you want, you can get it on there. And so I think a lot of people are turning to that nowadays, and I think that you would expect to spend less at that time. So I'm not really surprised by the numbers, but it is interesting.
I think it is interesting that the point that Katie brought up, that folks in that age range haven't been through the major economic cycles. And if you are past 50 as I am, you've seen, oh yes, I remember when we did this 20 years ago and 30 years ago, and you've seen the cycles come through several different times. So very interesting things. But before we kind of wrap up on the holidays, since this is kind of a time to give thanks, I want to give both of you the opportunity to talk about what you're thankful for this holiday season. We'll start with you, Katie.
Oh, that's a great question, Mitch. I have a lot to be thankful for this year. It's been a really good year for me. I would say that I'm very grateful for my job and my friends and my family, and I've had a lot of opportunities this year to travel, so I've enjoyed that very much. So, yeah.
You?
I mean, I got to reiterate the same: job, friends, and family. Everyone at the John Locke Foundation, I'm thankful for every day. I absolutely love what I do for a living, and getting to do something I'm passionate about on a regular basis is such an amazing thing to always be grateful for.
Yeah.
In addition, I'm grateful for video games.
Okay, that's a good thing.
And I'm always grateful for that. So there's lots of things to be grateful for, but definitely family and friends and work, and they just the gift of life.
I would echo what Kelly said about the John Locke Foundation. This is a great place to work, and I think that we both really love the people that we work with and what we do, and we feel very blessed and grateful to work here.
I have the best boss in the world. Shout out John Sanders.
John is a great guy, and we'll get with him on changing the name of the Center for Food, Power, and Life for one day a year. So as we're wrapping up the program this time around, probably the main thing that people are thinking about now, other than shopping and what do I have to get for grandma or nephew Billy and niece Sally, is probably, all right, what's going to be coming up the rest of this year, and what are some of the things to be watching in 2026? As you're thinking about that, in maybe 30 seconds or less, what's one of the top issues on your mind about things that you're going to be paying attention to in this coming year?
I mean, we're going to be keeping a close eye on the impact of tariffs and see how that progresses. There's some potential new tariffs that might be introduced at the beginning of the year, potentially a tariff on like aircraft and aircraft parts and things like that. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that and just continuing to watch that and its impact on major North Carolina industries.
Yeah, and with President Donald Trump, there could be a new tariff anytime, just depending on what his mood happens to be about any particular trade partner or adversary or anyone who's made him mad that day. How about you, Kelly? What are you focusing on as we're kind of winding up 2025?
What I'm really looking forward to is seeing what's going to be happening in the housing market. There's been a lot of great EMB movements locally in cities to try to increase development. And I mean, here in Raleigh, we're having a huge high-rise built on Glenwood that I know people were so upset about. But I'm like, build, build, build. Get them up, more units for people, more affordable. That even if that's market rate housing, that's great. Because people move into that, they move into the nicer, newer stuff, and then that leaves the older apartments empty, and then people move into those. It's for a cheaper price. It's great. And so I would love to see what we do with development. Trump's talking about a 50-year mortgage right now, which is insane. I do not want to have a mortgage that. Here's what gets me. If you're 30 years old and you get a 50-year mortgage, you will be 80. The average lifespan of a male in America is 75 years old. So you are dying before you've paid off your
mortgage.
house.
Yeah.
That was kind of one of the original ideas of Social Security, was they made the retirement age 65 when people died in their mid-60s. So you didn't expect them to live off of Social Security for a very long time. Well, very interesting things that are going to be taking place in North Carolina and across the country. We hope that you have been enjoying Thanksgiving and perhaps have taken this little respite from watching the football or watching the sports back there, eating that turkey dinner that may or may not have been less expensive this time than last time around, thanks to the deep discount on the turkeys. We also want to remind you that coming up after Thanksgiving, of course, is Black Friday, when people tend to head out to the stores. You also have the Cyber Monday, when people will shop online as if they aren't already shopping online throughout this process. And then, of course, there is Giving Tuesday. And the sponsoring organization, you've already heard nice words about it, but the sponsoring organization of the Carolina Journal is the John Locke Foundation, where we all work. And it is possible, since the John Locke Foundation is a nonprofit, for you to contribute to our organization on Giving Tuesday coming up. And you could go to johnlocke.org to find out more information about that. Well, with that in mind, once again, I would like to give both of our panelists the opportunity to say happy holidays to the viewers.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Thank you so much for watching, and we hope that you enjoy a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday with your family.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Enjoy your turkey and your leftover turkey sandwiches the next day.
Thanks for watching this episode. We'll be back next week with a more news-focused issue of an edition of the Debrief. We thank you for watching.